coming. You're not going to be disappointed. Stephen has the most phenomenal program. We saw it at Young Circle. Stephen did a fabulous job at Young Circle, and if he'll come up to the podium.
What? Oh.
You can start your film.
Hi, thank you all for coming out, watching the Hollywood, Florida Centennial movie. I want to give a big thanks to Karen because your lecture series made it very easy for me for a lot of these. We farmed a lot of the people that came in here and gave lectures. You'll recognize them. I know I see a lot of familiar faces here. You come to these lectures every month, so you'll see some familiar faces. Also, if you're in the movie, please stand up. There's a couple people here in the movie. Women's Club, we got Bob, Patty, we got Kat Goodin over here, and Valerie, of course, in the back. And Moyes, we're going to see a little bit of Moyes in the film. So this is really a tribute to the first 100 years of Hollywood during our centennial year. So let's get started.
A 100 years, one city, endless stories. This is the Centennial celebration of Hollywood, Florida, a city born from imagination, built with purpose, and defined by the people who've called it home for a century. Back in the 1920s, where I stand today, there was nothing here but flat, high ground covered with palmetto and pines, marshes, and the wild call of the Atlantic. But one man, Joseph Wesley Young, stood on this coast and saw more. He didn't just dream of a city. He envisioned a destination, a community, a way of life. He called it Hollywood by the Sea. Hi, my name is Julie Guy, longtime South Florida radio personality. I moved to Hollywood, Florida when I was 5, when our family bought a motel right on Hollywood Beach and named it after my mom, Lucy Apartments. And that's where I grew up. I watched from the front row as Hollywood grew and expanded to the bustling, thriving, and happening city that it is today, and where I still call home. Welcome to 100 years of Hollywood, Florida, a centennial celebration. Through rare archival photographs, first-hand stories from locals and historians, and cutting-edge AI animation that breathes life into historic postcards and images, this documentary illustrates our city's remarkable story. Join us on a journey through 100 years of dreams, progress, and community, where Hollywood's past meets its present, and its future begins to unfold. From the very beginning, Hollywood was built to welcome everyone, rich or poor, young or old, emphasizing beauty, health, and opportunity. Through the decades, Hollywood grew, and with it came the richness of its people, families planting roots, entrepreneurs building businesses, immigrants bringing culture, language, flavor, veterans returning home, musicians, teachers, artists, and dreamers, all adding their threads to the fabric of this place. And in this centennial moment, we don't just look back, we look around. We see a city investing in its future, protecting its parks, honoring its heritage, celebrating its diversity, and embracing innovation. We see resilience in the way the city recovers, rebuilds, and reimagines, in the way neighbors show up for each other, and in the way the next generation is already stepping forward to lead. Hollywood, Florida, 100 years young, still shining, still growing, still home. Joseph W. Young, known as JW to his friends, arrived in South Florida via the Florida East Coast Railway in 1920. Young envisioned a master-planned community that balanced natural beauty with modern convenience. Inspired by the ideals of the City Beautiful movement, he believed a well-designed city could uplift its citizens through wide, tree-lined boulevards, scenic parks, and grand public spaces that fostered civic pride. Over the next 4 years, Young moved fast. The Hollywood Land and Water Company was formed in 1922, roads were put in, city blocks laid out, and utilities installed. He imported palm trees by rail and dredged lakes to shape the landscape, creating North and South Lakes from the East Marsh. He designed a city from scratch, complete with a central business district, 3 10-acre traffic circles along a wide boulevard, residential districts, schools, churches, and oceanfront amenities, many of which are still with us today.
You're standing in a very important part of Hollywood if you want to talk about the beginning of Hollywood, because the Young Circle, as it's known today, also Arts Park, was one of the very first features that was ever constructed in Hollywood. Originally, when it was constructed, Joseph Young called it Circle Park, and then we've got a visit from a president of the United States of America who played around the golf over at the Hollywood Country Club and stayed in Hollywood, and after that, they decided to name it Harding Circle. Joseph Young never wanted anything named after him. That's the kind of guy he was. He was very modest, but upon his death in 1934, the city decided to dedicate this park to Young, so it's now known as Young Circle, and now it's also an arts park.
Our chamber is one of Hollywood's oldest institutions, founded in 1922 by Joseph Young before the city was incorporated. And Joseph Young served as our very first president. In 1924, a chamber delegation welcomed the very first passenger train to arrive at Hollywood's new train station, a milestone for our young community.
We are now standing in front of the first building built by Joseph Young in 1921. This housed the fleet of vehicles that he used to give tours of Hollywood to people who were possibly going to buy. And here is the plaque. Many historic buildings in downtown Hollywood have plaques such as this. Some even have photographs of what the buildings were originally. In 1924, Joseph Young invested $500,000 to build the Great Southern Hotel. When it opened the following year, its light pink walls, yellow awnings, and nightly live music made it a colorful showpiece of Mission Revival architecture.
The Hollywood Women's Club was founded in 1922. We were the ones who initiated telephone service to the city of Hollywood. We also collected many donations of books and formed the first library for the city of Hollywood.
I'm a Hollywood resident since 1966 and a life member of the Hollywood Historical Society. I'm also an avid golfer, and the Hollywood Beach Golf Course has been my home course since 1980. The course began as a modest 9-hole layout built by Joseph Young for his Hollywood Beach hotel guests. It opened in 1922. Shortly after, the course was expanded to 18 holes. The grand inauguration ceremony took place on January 19, 1924, introducing the Hollywood Golf and Country Club officially to the public. The clubhouse featured a retractable roof and a lighted dance floor, complete with orchestras, elaborate dinners, dances under the stars, bridge luncheons, and themed balls, making it one of the South Florida's most dazzling social spots in 1920s.
As we look back on Hollywood's Centennial 100 years, you gotta really look at this building. It was Joseph Young's magnus opus, some people called it. It was the finest hotel in all of South Florida, built in 1925 in 90 days, and served not only Hollywood, but most of Broward County. This was the largest, grandest hotel in all of Broward County. And when it opened, it rivaled the Biltmore and the Breakers and even the hotel in Havana, the Nacional. It becomes a Jewish-owned hotel in 1930 during the highest time of anti-Semitism of South Florida, and carries with a Jewish ownership up until the time it became the Bible College.
Young's magnificent Hollywood Casino swimming pool was just south of Johnson Street. It wasn't a gambling hall, but a grand, ocean-fed, saltwater swimming pool complex along the Broadwalk. For decades, the casino pool was the heart of beachside recreation and community spirit. Adjacent to the swimming complex stood the historic beach band shell. Built in the 1920s, it became a beloved oceanfront landmark to enjoy live music and community events.
I'd like to tell you a little about the development of Hollywood and its neighborhoods. Hollywood founder Joseph Young purchased a square mile of land around what we now call Young Circle and began construction of his dream city in 1921. This central section included downtown and Hollywood's first residential neighborhoods, Parkside and Royal Point Siena. From this original core, Young quickly expanded the boundaries of his vision outward. To the north, the neighborhood of Liberia emerged, while Little Ranches took shape to the west. On the eastern side, development extended to the lakes as well as the beach.
But building his city wasn't enough. Joseph Young had to sell it. Young became his city's greatest promoter, producing brochures, films, and real estate tours that cast Hollywood as a paradise of sun, opportunity, and elegance. He reached out across the country, welcoming newcomers from every background, Northerners, immigrants, retirees, and working families, all invited to make this dream their own.
Yeah, the history of Liberia goes back to around 1923. It was actually incorporated before the city of Hollywood. Joseph Young was to have black workers, be able to be still close enough to get to work, but also have their own community. He had it in mind for it to be like a self-sufficient community for black folks. This was an area where, to have a school, hence we have attics, we were having churches, homes. So here we are on the black business district of Liberia. This is where you had a lot of businesses, pool rooms, restaurants, barbershops, all the like. So this was a very thriving area. You had a lot of stars that used to come through here. James Brown used to come through here. Eartha Kitt has been here at Attucks. You've also had the likes of the Cornelius brothers and Sister Rose. They're from here. They actually went to Attucks.
The city of Hollywood has had a really interesting history in terms of education. Early on in the 1920s, there really weren't that many families here. But any kids that were in the city had to get on a bus and travel to the Danias School. But there were a few small children whose parents didn't want them to get on the bus that inspired them to open a school right here in the city of Hollywood. It was in a residential home, and matter of fact, it's in the home right here behind me, the Messick House. The Messick House, built in the early 1920s, was built by Homer Messick. He was a California architect, and he built this double California bungalow. The 6 small children would come here every day to study. I can just imagine them sitting on the benches out front waiting for school to start. This is Bart Carlisle. He and his wife bought this house in 1998, and they still live here today.
The first year, the teacher had 6 students, and the next year she had 14 and had a nervous breakdown. We all know how that goes.
In 1925, the government came in and opened a new school in the neighborhood. Matter of fact, right down the street. It was called Hollywood Central School. It was a beautiful Rubish and Hunter designed building, and it was multi-grade level. Today we know that school as Hollywood Central Preparatory K-8 Academy. As the population of the city of Hollywood grew, the government opened another school called Hollywood Hills School. Today we know it as Hollywood Hills Elementary School.
So during the early years of Hollywood, when Joseph Young was really getting Hollywood going, like busting at the seams, neighboring cities like Dania were just basically a farming community, as well as Hallandale. And they saw what was happening in Hollywood, and they were so excited and thought that they'd be a much better metropolitan city if they joined forces.
By 1925, just 5 years after his arrival, Hollywood was officially incorporated. A new city on Florida's coast, fueled by optimism, idealism, and the tireless energy of its founder. But just as Hollywood's star was beginning to rise, nature had other plans. Just 1 year after Hollywood's official incorporation, disaster struck. In the early hours of September 18, 1926, the so-called Great Miami Hurricane tore into South Florida with brutal force, wind gusts over 120 miles per hour, tidal surges that swallowed coastlines. Cities like Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and Hollywood were devastated. Joseph Young's dream city lay battered. Hotels in ruins, rail lines twisted, and streets drowned beneath debris and floodwaters. The storm marked the end of Florida's land boom. The population of Hollywood went from nearly 30,000 people to only 2,000 residents almost overnight. Investors fled, banks collapsed, and the real estate gold rush turned to dust.
When the 1926 hurricane struck, the Great Southern Hotel became an emergency hospital. Later, during the Great Depression, it was sold to the Wohl family for just $85,000. Morningstar Jewelry Store was the original sales office for Joseph Young's business. It was a two-story building, but during the 1926 hurricane, the second floor, which was built of wood, was blown off. So we had to move it over to building a new building over here at this location. The 50th anniversary of Hollywood, they called it Anniversary Park, and now we're having our Centennial, and it has now become Centennial Park.
This park used to be a beautiful two-story office building built by Joe Young a little after 1930. It was the office of newly formed Hollywood Inc., which was started by my grandfather. In late 1925, he met Joe Young, and they entered into a contract for him to pave most of the roads in Hollywood. Joe Young was doing great until the devastating hurricane of 1926. Joe Young's lot sales, which he was doing all over the country, stopped. Many of the people that had bought lots on the installment sale basis stopped paying. Many of the people who had mortgages defaulted on their mortgages.
Well, the hurricane of 1926 was the first really big storm to strike South Florida after it had become a place. Before that, we don't know, of course, how many hurricanes struck, millions, but the population didn't really start getting here until the beginning of the 20th century. Mr. Young had built a lot of his buildings solidly, and most of those survived. But homes that were made out of wood frame, they were just sticks in the middle of the street. Sand came into the famous resort hotel all the way up to the 3rd floor, but after the storm passed, it was just about the only place where people could go for refuge, and it took in many, many, many people. This was at a point where the big boom of the 20s was already starting to fade. And after this hurricane, a lot of people said, okay, that's it, I'm going back up north. The trains gave free rides to anyone who wanted to leave town. They were packed.
And then once everybody lost everything and people moved out of Hollywood, Dania decided to stick to tomato growing, which is how they started. And that's what they did. They de-annexed out of Hollywood. Hallandale de-annexes out of Hollywood, and we become a much smaller city. Interesting to note, Golden Beach and Atlantic Shores were right behind Dania and Hallandale, and had not all these tragedies happened, Hollywood would have actually gone into Dade County. Leftover vestige of this, a lot of Dania Beach Boulevard is still in the city of Hollywood, as well as Port Everglades, 74.9%.
But the hurricane was only the beginning. In 1929, the Great Depression gripped the nation. Across America, fortunes vanished, bread lines stretched for blocks, and confidence in the American dream seemed to flicker. In Hollywood, Florida, the pain was personal. Development stalled, jobs disappeared. Even Joseph Young, the city's founder, suffered devastating financial losses in Hollywood.
Joe Young kept going after the hurricane, tried to rebuild, but the Depression, he couldn't keep up with his debts. Sam was the only bidder for the property that was being auctioned off for the deaths. He paid $25,000 for approximately 25,000 undeveloped lots in Hollywood. There were no buyers. There was nothing really to do during the Depression except to try to consolidate holdings, to try to pay the taxes, and just wait.
During the Great Depression and through the end of World War II, home building was slow and sporadic. In the 1930s, a large number of homes were physically moved. While some residents lost properties to foreclosure or failure to pay property taxes, others saw opportunities to buy and move existing homes to vacant lots or more favorable locations.
Young continued with several developments in New York. In early 1934, gravely ill Young and his wife returned to their home in Hollywood, hoping the warm climate would help him heal. But his heart was too damaged. February 1934, Hollywood's founder died at home. And yet, through hardship, the people endured. The population grew. Tourists came and life was celebrated.
The city of Hollywood loves its celebrations, and it always has, ever since the 1920s. On the beach, one of the famous celebrations was the Baby Parade. It was a festive walk of well-dressed little people, which the audiences really loved. In downtown, there was always, over the decades, a number of military parades. And in the 1920s, there was the Parade of Progress, which celebrated the development of the city of Hollywood and its forward motion. The Hollywood Historical Society recently did an exhibition on celebrations and identified nearly 50 different events, and they only scratched the surface.
The paddleball courts were originally built in 1933. This was all part of the draw to draw people to the city of Hollywood, and they were originally wooden courts, and they were side by side, played only on one side, and they were right here.
Welcome to Hollywood Harbor, the original name of Port Everglades, which was actually started and spearheaded by Joseph Young. And he starts this project, dredges Bay Mabel, and eventually this thing grows to be the biggest economic engine in all of Broward County.
Riverside Military Academy sat in the center of this circle. It was the boarding school for the Riverside cadets. The Florida campus was seasonal. Cadets and faculty would spend January through March in Hollywood, then return to Gainesville, Georgia for the remainder of the school year. During World War II, the Florida campus was repurposed briefly as a naval air gunner school.
During World War II, Hollywood found new purpose. The United States government transformed much of the city into U.S. Navy training schools. First, the Beach Hotel was requisitioned to become a training ship for officers and for air navigators using the then secret radar. Out to the west of Hollywood Boulevard, Riverside Military Academy was requisitioned for training young men to be naval air gunners. Locals opened their homes, their shops, their hearts, supporting the war effort and rebuilding their city one act of resilience at a time.
It was a very different situation once war was declared. The war was a personal experience for almost everybody in Hollywood. The able-bodied men, of course, went off. The ones that could joined up, went away. They closed their businesses and put signs on, closed for the duration. Back then, there was rationing, of course, for everybody. Coupons for coffee or sugar or meat. And as I understand it, there was a very good black market in tires. We could see ships in the Gulf Stream that were carrying cargo ships, not battleships, being torpedoed, and they would go up in flames. Now I'm about 8 years old and went to the beach to get my swimming lesson in at the casino pool, and right on the beach was this little black boat with a U-boat. And of course, kids wanted to go run over and climb on it. It was empty, but we weren't allowed near it. The Coast Guard was already there taking it away. It was never written up. This happened elsewhere in Florida, so it's not something that only Hollywood had, but it had been sunk and finally ended up on Hollywood Beach. And as I say, this was never written in the newspapers because they didn't want to frighten us with the war on.
The war was over. America was rebuilding, not just its cities, but its spirit. From coast to coast, the late 1940s ushered in an era of prosperity. Suburbs expanded, highways stretched across the landscape, and the American dream seemed more tangible than ever. Hollywood was a stronger, more grounded city, no longer fueled by boomtown optimism, but by the steady strength of a community that survived storm, economic collapse, and global war, and was still standing.
Before settling into its longtime home at Young Circle in 1941, the Chamber moved all around the city, starting in Bastion Building, now the Octopus Garden Bar, then Hollywood's oldest building, and even the Great Southern Hotel. Once established at Young Circle, it became a major tourist hub, registering up to 50,000 visitors each season in the 1950s. As the city expanded, a separate West Hollywood Chamber formed and later merged, creating the Greater Hollywood Chamber of Commerce as we know it today.
We are in historic downtown Hollywood, which has been designated as a historic area. This is Melina's children's wear and adult wear that was built in 1946 by my grandfather, Matt Thomish. He built it for his wife, Melina, and it was a stable for many, many years. Hollywood had two movie theaters, the Ritz Theater, which was on the north end of Hollywood Boulevard, and the Florida Theater, which is now a parking lot. Actually, I was supposed to go to that movie theater one day, and it had burned down in the 60s, so no movies for me.
Now let's not forget about the mighty Bulldogs. South Broward High School actually had its start at the Dania School. The Dania School actually blew down in the 1926 hurricane and had to be rebuilt. It wasn't until 1948 that the South Broward High School that we know of on Federal Highway was built by a modern architect named Bayard Lukens. The original clock tower and auditorium still exist on that campus. South Broward High School did not start in the city of Hollywood, nor did it start in Broward County. All of this was Dade County back then.
Back in the day, when I was a child in the 50s and the 60s, this was the place to be because there was no such thing as a mall in those days. You would come downtown, you'd go to the movie theater, which is now this parking lot. You would go to Valentine's bookstore, the Five and Dime, and there was a pharmacy here. Smith's Appliance, there was Washburn's Florist. This was the place where you would go for everything. There was a dance studio, a toy store, and there was also a grocery store over on Tyler Street.
The Candy Cane Parade was started in the 1950s by the merchants here in downtown. They wanted to put on a parade during the day on the Broad Walk that sort of excited people about coming downtown to shop for the holidays. Today, of course, the Candy Cane Parade is a huge success. It's still on the beach, but it's turned into a nighttime festival. There is one thing that's for sure that we can all agree on, and that's that the City of Hollywood supports celebrations so that people can get together and simply have a good old time.
Memorial Hospital is a Hollywood institution that was created after the formation of the South Broward Hospital District in 1947. Shortly after the district's formed in 1953, we finally see Hollywood's first hospital, two-story, 100-bed facility with, wait for it, metal jalousie windows. Luckily, we did not have a serious hurricane because those are not hurricane shutters.
Returning veterans and their families poured into South Florida, drawn by sunshine, opportunity, and the promise of a fresh start.
standing here in front of the current City Hall. The police department was downstairs, and people just would walk in and say hi. Everybody knew everybody, and you couldn't get away with anything. Somebody say, "Hey, I saw your kid speeding down the highway." I got in trouble. The city planted 48 trees, one for each state of the Union, and different service clubs, the Kiwanis and everything were involved in it. This is where the jail was until the Hollywood Police Department opened down on Park Road. I'd never been in jail. I pray I never have to go. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I just swear a lot.
Hollywood's iconic Broadwalk, once lined with young men and some women in U.S. Navy white, now filled with vacationing families and beachgoers in pastel swimsuits. Motels, diners, and souvenir shops flourished. Expansion headed westward, offering mid-century homes and amenities to the growing middle class. This was the age of drive-ins, diners, and doo-wop, and Hollywood embraced it all. Music echoed from jukeboxes, art festivals began to dot the calendar, and civic life buzzed with new energy.
The year was 1960, and my father and mother came to Hollywood, Florida. My dad put the shovel in the ground and built this beautiful landmark funeral home. As a little girl, I lived upstairs at the funeral home with my parents and my grandparents. When I looked out my window, I saw land crabs, palmetto bugs, and palm trees. Hollywood Boulevard was a dirt road, and 441 was a cow pasture. I just knew that my daddy was helping people get to heaven, but I didn't have any friends that came over to play with me because I lived in a funeral home.
After the war, undeveloped areas of Young's original plan for Hollywood began to fill in. Still others were subdivided and developed, such as Park East, just west of Seaboard Railroad, and nearby Meekins Hills. Although development of Hollywood Hills had begun in the 1920s, it was not until the late 50s through the 60s that this expansive subdivision was finally built out. Around this time, Hillcrest was established to the south. Emerald Hills was developed to the north in the 1970s.
Emerald Hills, one of the last subdivisions to be developed in Hollywood by Hollywood Inc., not Joseph Young. Sam Horovitz took over everything from Joseph Young in the 20s. His son Bill Horovitz takes over after he passes away. And this is the last piece of a big neighborhood in Hollywood, Emerald Hills, which was sold as a higher elevation community in Old Hollywood. Parts of Hollywood Hills and Emerald Hills are very high elevations. You can tell this by the old oak canopy that is still present in these two communities, and they grow in very dry, sandy soil and have always been dry and never had to be drained.
As the civil rights movement reshaped the national conversation, change came to Hollywood too, slowly but steadily.
The colored beach was in Dania, and at that time, there was no real access to transportation to get to the beach. So you had to take the ferry. You would get picked up in the morning, and then you get picked up in the evening. And if you missed the ferry, you were basically stuck at night at this beach. But it wasn't until 1961 where Von D. Mizell, Eula Johnson, and students from Dillard High School took part in a wade-in, which was at Fort Lauderdale Beach, right by the elbow room. The students from Dillard High School just literally went into Fort Lauderdale Beach and went swimming, and it caused a disturbance. And it caused such a major disturbance that it actually led to the integration of beaches in Broward County. And now that colored beach in Dania is now known as the Von D. Mizell Eula Johnson State Park.
My participation in the park system led me to be appointed as a commissioner of the South Broward Park District to help expand or develop T.Y. Park, which is also known as Topakiji-Yagni. The problem we were having is the park became so popular that people from Dade County and Fort Lauderdale and Pepper Pines and all the way out west, they were all coming here because it was such a beautiful park. And I sought out to expand T.Y. Park by acquiring the land on the east side, now commonly known as the campgrounds. So we went from 8,000 to 12,000 people to accommodate, and that was great. There are a number of other minor parks in the city. They used to be developed and dedicated to the name of a decedent commissioner, a former commissioner who had died. That tradition got broken several years ago when they named the park after Bob Butterworth. And I recall Bob Butterworth showing up that day and saying, "I hope this is not a premonition of what's to come, because I'm still alive and they're not supposed to name him until you die."
Past the original western boundary of Joseph Young's Hollywood was a large unincorporated area known as West Hollywood. While taxes there were low, the need for municipal services grew, resulting in calls for annexations, which occurred between 1953 and 1969. Among the neighborhoods joining the city at this time were Lawn Acres, Driftwood, Beverly Park, Washington Park, Boulevard Heights, Carriage Hills, and Playland Estates.
When Interstate 95 was built through Hollywood in the 1960s and early 1970s, the highway cut a direct north-south path through what had been quiet residential areas and farmland west of US 1. Interstate 95 divided some older neighborhoods, displacing homes and altering local traffic patterns. By the late 1970s, I-95 had become a defining feature of Hollywood's westward expansion, connecting the city to the broader South Florida metropolitan corridor.
And here's a fun fact. The chamber is the reason the I-95 exit is at Sharon Street instead of Staff. Concerned for student safety near Oak Ridge and nearby school, the chamber convinced planners to shift the exit north. So yes, you can thank the chamber every time you take that ramp. More than 100 years later, we are still shaping Hollywood's future.
We're standing in 441, known as State Road 7 or 7. Some people say 441. It was completed around 1926 as an alternative to the east-northwest corridor. The only one was US 1 and Dixie Highway. In some places they merged. And so this was built in the 20s to service the farming communities of West Broward. So the road kind of grew up with the suburbanization and urbanization of urban sprawl from the eastern corridors out west. Then it became even more important.
By the 1970s and into the 1980s, Hollywood had grown into more than a resort town. It was a true community. New schools, cultural centers, and civic organizations gave the city depth and direction. The founding vision of Joseph Young, a city for everyone, was coming into focus once again.
We're at the Hollywood Historical Society's Research Center here at our headquarters at the Hammerstein House on Polk Street. The Historical Society began in 1974 in an effort to preserve a building that was going to be demolished. The Hollywood Hills Elementary School was a building that was built back in 1926. In 1974, the school board really wanted to tear the old building down and replace it with a new, more modernized building. The Historical Society organized and led letter writing campaigns and other activities. That was the birth of a huge movement that continues to this day. We're over 50 years old now. Pat Smith, the founder of the group, organized all kinds of research activities that went street by street, building by building, documenting what was here in the city. First in 1980 and then a follow-up in 2002. We have site files for a lot of addresses here throughout the city in all 6 districts.
So Addix was the historically black high school that served the South Broward County area. In 1968 was a key moment, and that was the closing of Addix High School. And how the school came to be closed was a story where many folks from the community say was very underhanded in how it was done. But Addix closing also saved a couple other schools in Broward County. 2 years later, Blanche Ely High School closed in 1970 and was then saved. And that ended up getting Miss Ely to go all the way to the state capitol to get her school reopened. They tried this for Dillard as well. So when you look at it, Addix closing inadvertently saved 2 other historically black high schools.
When the hotel owner, Ben Tobin, decided to sell because of this ramp, a gigantic Christian Bible college took up residence here. And then when they decided they couldn't handle this gigantic structure, it turned into an investment called the Ocean Walk Mall and timeshares, and was within bankruptcy within a year.
The most recent wave of annexations occurred between 1988 and 2001 in areas north of Sterling Road. Here you'll find Arapahoe Farms, Lake Eden, Maple Ridge, and Oak Ridge. Even after 100 years, much of Joseph Young's vision for Hollywood remains alive, in no small part to these many thriving neighborhoods.
Well, I was very proud to have been elected the first woman to be mayor of Hollywood and served 20 years, which, as we know, is 20% of the history of Hollywood. One of the things that I ran on and was proud to be able to do was to work to take the Community Redevelopment Agency. It was all about the downtown, and that was when we redid Harrison Street and made a lot of improvements in planning. Years later, we realized that we really needed to do the things at the beach. So we created the beach district of the Community Redevelopment Agency, the CRA. But the other thing that was very important to me was to make sure that the entire city felt that they were as important as our economic engine areas like the beach.
When I got here, it was 1971. I was in 9th grade. I was 13, turning 14. This place was humming. It was packed. There was a 10-game wait. It was the cool thing to do anywhere in Dade, Broward, or Palm Beach County. And of all this activity going on all through the 70s and even into the 80s, Wally was kind of like the mayor. He helped run the tournaments. He fought when the city was going to knock them down and put up a parking lot. Did everything it took to save these courts. So forevermore, we have the pleasure of these gorgeous courts.
In 1925, Joseph Young donated the first City Hall of Hollywood, which included the police department and jailhouse. It became an upscale restaurant, nightclub, and bar with live entertainment. The older side of the building had Italian Capodimonte chandeliers, colorful glass-covered ceiling, and the beautiful wooden bar with its new decorations and brass rails. I was the manager at the Hemingway restaurant in Hollywood from 1976 for 14 plus years. Beginning in 1978, Buddy Rich and his orchestra began the music that kept the entertainers and patrons returning to the historic Hemingway restaurant in the 1980s and early 1990s. Other high-profile names that entertained there included Lionel Hampton, Dizzy Gillespie, Monty Rock III, Gloria Estefan, Connie Francis, and of course, Tiny Tim, to name a few. And apparently, it's going to become what you see up there, Mr. Tarzan's Show Club.
These decades were marked by growth, music, and movement. The city was now thriving, pulsing with the rhythm of American life. In the early 1990s, Hollywood was a modest beach town, often overshadowed by its larger neighbors, Miami and Fort Lauderdale. Known for its laid-back atmosphere and a scenic boardwalk, it was a quiet destination for retirees and seasonal visitors. The population, just over 120,000, reflected an older demographic with tourism rooted in family-owned motels and small beachside businesses. But the city was on the verge of change. As the 2000s approached, Hollywood began to diversify. A new wave of immigrants from Latin America, the Caribbean, and Eastern Europe brought fresh energy and a multicultural spirit. The city's identity evolved, no longer just a retreat, but a vibrant and growing community.
Home is a special place, and everybody wants to come home at the end of the day to a safe and beautiful neighborhood. And that's where the civic associations come in. For example, they create many activities and events for children so they have a safe place to play. They do get very politically active, like North Central worked very, very hard at saving the Sunset Park golf course area. We love downtown Parkside Royal Point Sienna Civic Association because that was Joseph Young's first neighborhood. Liberia has a very active civic association, and theirs is the oldest in the city of Hollywood.
So we actually redid parks around the whole community. We redid Boulevard Heights so that it was a wonderful park. We added a pool to Driftwood. We brought the Boys and Girls Club out to West Hollywood as well, and the Police Athletic League to a central part of Hollywood. Those kinds of initiatives made us the one family and feel that everybody was getting a benefit. Young Circle Park had become sort of obsolete. Unfortunately, vagrants had kind of taken over, and we wanted to recreate something that would be appropriate and new and special. And Broward County, fortunately, offered a grant, so we hired a firm to create what would be something that would be focused on the arts, but would also bring children, families here. We got this beautiful arts park created, and in 2007, it finally opened.
Part of the renovation of the Circle, the new Arts Park renovation, was to not just have a big blank space of a circle park, but also when you walk in here, you have this feeling like there's different rooms. Here we have the children's area, you have a meditation area over here where the bamboo are. You also have the amphitheater and the glass blowing art studio here. This is actually the third band shell. We had a primitive one in the early days, and then around 1952, an architect named Ken Spry, mid-century modern architect, designed and they built this most incredible band shell. But we do love what we've got here now. Baobab trees were planted probably 50, 70 years ago. We're really not clear because there's no record of how we tamed these baobab trees. They can live 1,000 to 2,000, up to 5,000 years. So long after everything is gone, if the earth is still here and this is dry ground, these baobab trees will still be here.
We have some great parks here. You've got Westlake Park, you've got TY Park, you've got Ann Cole Park, North Park on the beach. These are jewels in Broward County, and luckily Hollywood has some of the best. Likewise with the libraries. We've gotten the National Library of the Year. We just got the National Parks recognition. We got some great places here.
From 1953 to today, you can see what's happened, as well as everything else in South Florida. It's gone big. So that two-story facility has turned into one of the largest hospital districts in the country. This is also Joe DiMaggio Children's Hospital, and a lot of people don't realize Joe DiMaggio later in life lived in Hollywood and Harbor Islands. We're very proud in Hollywood to have such an important medical facility for children connected to one of the best hospitals in the county. One of the most important things in Hollywood on State Road 7 is, of course, the Indian Reservation, the gigantic, you can't miss it. The Seminole tribe of Florida was the first tribe of Indians in the nation to challenge the government on casino gambling. And kudos to the Seminoles for being successful, as well as all of Broward County. And this road was widened in 2020 because of the incredible growth that Broward County has seen over the years. And most people don't realize that this roadway ends in Miami, but the other end is Rocky Top, Tennessee. So the next time you sing Rocky Top, Tennessee, just think, hey, that's where 441 ends.
In 1969, the Great Southern appeared in the final scenes of Midnight Cowboy, but time caught up with it. The hotel closed in 1991 and was demolished in 2020. Today, the site is home to 1818 Park residences and a food court. The Great Southern's hotel's exterior was recreated by the woman-owned Peacock Architects firm, using historic photos, original blueprints, and 3D scanning to record the original appearance. The exact replica pays tribute to the original design, keeping a piece of Hollywood history alive.
As part of the 2019 general obligation bond, a $12 million renovation project was approved by Hollywood voters that included a redesign of the golf course back to the original 1924 layout, as well as a new community center and clubhouse. This updated building will have a bar, a restaurant, and is designed to host up to 180 attendees for various events. Both the golf course and the clubhouse are estimated to be open in February of 2026.
Presidential Circle is now a commercial office corridor. The flagship structure is the Presidential Circle office building, built in 1989 on 10 acres. The building has been a prominent landmark in the Hollywood Hills area and continues to be a major office hub.
The foundation was sinking. We had extensive damage to the entire structure, and we were in danger of losing the building. A very special thing happened in that a benefactor stepped forward and offered to fund the entire project with the stipulation that the source of funds would remain anonymous. Now, the challenge is to maintain this structure, to make sure that it is here for the next generation of women and for this community.
Our club actually has grown to over 100 members, and this past year we were able to impact over 30 organizations in our community, and we keep looking forward to expand and elevate how we can impact and improve the community.
Half a century later, this site found new life. The new Margarita Hollywood Beach Resort includes more than 350 guest rooms, multiple pools, restaurants, and retail. When the resort opened in 2015, the transformation was complete. The band shell comes alive with live music every Wednesday through Sunday, and the old casino pool spirit was reborn in a modern tropical resort that still celebrates what Hollywood Beach has always offered: sun, salt, and a sense of escape.
With growth came new challenges. Rising sea levels, overdevelopment pressures, and aging infrastructure became pressing concerns. In response, Hollywood embraced innovation. Green building standards were adopted, transportation systems improved, and long-term sustainability initiatives took root. The city focused on climate resilience, environmental preservation, and inclusive urban planning.
A lot of people are talking about climate change and its effect on hurricanes. The consensus pretty much is that climate change is not causing more hurricanes to form that would not have otherwise formed, but what it is doing is it's making storms stronger. And a lot of times, storms are going from not so strong to very strong in a very short time. There's not a part of Florida that's more than 60 miles from water. And so any hurricane hitting any part of Florida, whether it's Hollywood or the Panhandle, is gonna shoot up your insurance rates, gonna cause a lot of damage, and that's a problem for everybody.
If we're not doing anything to preserve our history, we're gonna lose our history. If we're not preserving our culture, we're gonna lose our culture. We're in a situation where, you know, we could be in a very bad spot in the future if we're not working together on an economical, social, and political, as well as an educational level as well.
So I'm a stand-up paddler and I love taking my family out on the ocean and snorkeling. We are lucky to have not only an actual reef offshore, but now we have these artificial reef structures from Thousand Mermaids. They're close to shore. You can go off the beach, snorkel the statues. It's just another unique feature for not only residents, but tourists also to come here and enjoy our beautiful ocean. Joseph Young called this a city for everyone, and it really is. And we hope that looking forward in Hollywood, we keep that special charm, that small town feel, and we need to redevelop our city, but we hope to keep that balance.
Today, Hollywood's population has surpassed 150,000. It stands as one of South Florida's most diverse cities, where dozens of cultures contribute to a rich social and economic fabric. Its beaches still draw millions, but its future is being shaped by innovation, resilience, and a deep commitment to community, and always looking back as well as looking forward.
Welcome to the historic Hammerstein House, headquarters of the Hollywood Historical Society. This home once belonged to Clarence Philip Hammerstein and his lovely wife, Vera Marie Rust Hammerstein. Here we see beautiful portraits of both Clarence and Vera. Clarence came to work for our city founder, Joseph Young, as an advertisement man, and Clarence was an expert and a teacher on his favorite subject, mangoes. Matter of fact, the state of Florida gave him the nickname of the Mango King. Come in the kitchen and I'll show you more. So this set of china, it's marked H for Hammerstein. And on the second floor, we have Clarence's military uniforms, many of the hats and jackets that come from their work in civic organizations, and the famous Vera dress. The bedroom is unique because it actually has a patio right off the bedroom, and it overlooks the original garage, which is now used as our research center that holds 20,000 items related to the city of Hollywood.
In 2025, Hollywood, Florida marks 100 years as a city, a centennial celebration that isn't just about one city, but a shared legacy across South Florida. Hollywood isn't alone in this moment. Coral Gables, Hialeah, Boca Raton, Deerfield Beach, Jupiter, and many more are also turning 100.
The City of Hollywood staff has gone above and beyond to help us celebrate the centennial this year. As you know, we have had countless events throughout the past 11 months, each of them marked specifically to celebrate this year. You are here tonight at the pinnacle of the year for this fantastic weekend of music and celebration. We're going to recognize our centenarians and more. And this week marks the actual signing of the charter for the City of Hollywood. As part of the city's efforts to celebrate our centennial, they designed this amazing logo. You'll see it throughout all of the city, on our clothes, on our pins, on everything. And you may not have realized it, but the secret to the logo is that it incorporates the 3 circles of the city. 1, 2, 3, and of course, our beautiful sea turtle right in the middle. Thank you all so much for supporting the City of Hollywood, the greatest place to live, work, love, and play.
So what a great story Hollywood has been for 100 years, and that story continues today. Here we are in the year 2025, celebrating our centennial, and we continue to make the investments that make the city a great place to live. We've been investing hundreds of millions of dollars collectively throughout the city to make sure the city is resilient in the face of rising seas and all the environmental impacts of the climate change that we're experiencing in present day. We're investing in housing affordability and affordable and workforce housing, and make sure that Hollywood, like that founding vision from Joe Young, remains a city that is a place for everyone.
And it was about 20 years ago today that we started to design this. We also planned to make sure that there would be a lot of people here, critical mass. That's what's needed for a vibrant city. How will people get here? It will be a commuter rail, and it will stop all along many stops. Wynwood, all the way down to Miami, stop up at Fort Lauderdale, the airport, Delray, Jupiter, all the way up there.
Transportation is not the only future investment. Hollywood's $165 million general obligation GO bond is funding major citywide improvements in public safety, parks, and infrastructure. The dream that began 100 years ago hasn't faded. It's just begun to take a new shape, one that looks boldly to the future. We look forward to the next century with nostalgia, with vision, and with the understanding that what we build today will shape the Hollywood of the future. It's been an honor to reflect on the past 100 years, and now, with gratitude and hope, we turn the page, ready to write the next chapter together.
Happy birthday, Hollywood. You're looking great at 100.
Looking forward to the next 100 years. Woo!
Happy 100th, Hollywood. You don't look a day over 99.
Happy Centennial from the World Club of Hollywood.
Hi, what did you think of the movie? Awesome. Well, this was not your only opportunity to watch this movie. It will be showing 3 more times in a public location. And this Thursday, next Sunday, and the Sunday after that, be showing at Cinema Paradiso downtown. And not to rag on the Sterling Road Library, we're very grateful to have this experience, but hopefully we won't have that audio lag. And quite frankly, the movie theater has a lot better audio equipment, because I put a lot into that soundtrack, and when the bass gets really kicking, I think it brings the whole movie up to a whole nother level. So anyway, question?
No, I just wanted to commend you. I thought it was fabulous.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
This is the best one for the whole year. The best series.
Oh, wow. I'm honored and flattered. And again, like I said, I couldn't have done this without Karen and a lot of people in this room. So I'm just a guy with the camera and the editing equipment who records what other people do. So, thank you.
So what part got cut out for another?
Oh, it wasn't one part. I had to sit down, and I sat down 12 hours later. It was a 40-minute movie, and I don't know who was there, but they told me I had to cut 20 minutes because they didn't have enough time. And the city, after the movie ended, the stage sat empty for 20 minutes. So I'm like, what happened? Anyway, that's my personal gripe, but I'm glad the 40-minute movie will never be seen again. Going forward, it will always be the 60-minute version.
I saw it at the Arts Park Centennial, and it was so wonderful and fast-paced, and I look forward to seeing it again. So I've enjoyed it. I'll probably see it yet again. But
I hope you do. Awesome.
I'm just disappointed that a really important part of Hollywood's history, I didn't see it either showing, and that's Orangebrook Golf Course.
You're right. There was a lot of stories that I would love to be included. We had a certain amount of time. Diplomat wasn't included. That wasn't through our fault. Nobody at the Diplomat would get back to me. So they were out. The Orange Book, I would have loved to include them. We had time constraints. We couldn't tell every single story. But maybe part 2. I don't know. For 21, 25 for that movie, I will be sure to include Orange Book, I promise.
You're hired.
Are there other plans to distribute the film, upload it to YouTube on one of the local TV channels?
After the 3 viewings, we're going to put it up on YouTube. It will also be up on the Historical Society's YouTube channel that will have everything, including the movie and your questions and stuff. So.
Any chance of any of the local TV stations carrying it? Like
PBS, where we are talking about seeing if we could put it on PBS. And then also, this is a new venture for me. I've only started this documentary film production about 3 years ago, and we've produced 3 movies about Hollywood. One is the Broadwalk biography. That's the history of just the Broadwalk. There's another one that I had in the Hollywood, Florida Film Festival this year. It's called Hollywood Scenes. It's 6 short movies about Hollywood, including A Big Storm, the Hollywood Art Walk, the Cardboard Boat Parade, and a couple more. And that's playing
Next year.
That'll play here next year, so stay tuned.
Everybody got the schedule for 2026, and it's kind of, I think, November.
I think it's November 15th, if I remember correctly, yeah.
Yeah, November.
Kat, one of our stars of the movie.
Great job, Stephen, and thank you for the Historical Society for everything that you put into the film. Are you going to be putting the 3 upcoming showings on your social media so that you can also share it with others?
Yes, I will put up the link. I do believe it's free, so they're not even charging. It's a free event for everybody. So, but you do have to get your tickets in advance. So I suggest, if you're interested to do that viewing, to go on to the Cinema Paradiso website, select the day that you want to come and secure your tickets. So, because we don't want to turn people away at the door, which has happened before. So, any other questions or comments? All right, thank you all so much for coming out.